Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
Today we're going to continue with our series on finding balance as a high-achieving, rebooting man. A man who is a type A personality, very big goals, very ambitious. There are a lot of things you want to do in life. You're hard driving. You're somewhat of a perfectionist. But the downside of all your ambition and all your success is that you often find yourself engaging in your out-of-control behavior, which unfortunately brings up very, very strong emotions. And the worst part is that it makes it very hard for you to actually enjoy life. Yes, you can enjoy some of life's material pleasures, but as you get more successful, you find that you're not really accessing all the positive emotions that you could. You might also find that you are having a lot of secrets. You might also find that you're not able to disconnect from work and disconnect from success and actually enjoy the fruits of your labor. So today we're going to be talking about how you can, using the rebooting process, begin to develop some of those traits. So I'm going to start off by just defining you so that there is no confusion about who I am talking to. And if you can relate to these traits, then you're the type of man that I work with in the intensive program. You're what I call a high-achieving individual. First of all, you set clear, actionable goals, and you often stay focused. One of your traits. Another is that you take consistent action even when you feel uncertain. Next is you stay disciplined and you manage your time effectively. You also adapt quickly when things don't go as planned in business, in your personal life, whatnot. You use setbacks as feedback, not failures. You actively seek out new strategies and resources to improve yourself. You also have a natural habit of celebrating small wins along the way. You maintain a positive outlook on achieving your goals. You also push through discomforts to reach your full potential. You are results-oriented and you measure your progress on a regular basis. You have a habit of visualizing your success and aligning all your actions accordingly. And finally, last but not least, you believe that life doesn't happen to you and it happens for you. All of these traits were gathered from my clients in the intensive who are highly successful individuals. These are also traits which I possess and I had worked through my reboots to develop. So if you can relate to any of these, if you're like, man, most of those traits are my traits, you're in the right place. Now, if you can't relate to some of them and you feel that, oh man, like I don't relate to that, like those are things I'm trying to develop and I feel that my out of control sexual behavior and other behaviors are holding me back, you're also in the right place. Because the difference between Porn Reboot and other programs is that we're not just here to simply get you to end your behavior with pornography and just recover. We're here to completely change your life and the person who you are. If you want to be a high achiever, this is where you're going to learn how to do that. So now that we've talked about some of the traits of the high achiever, the high performer, I'm going to talk about what happens when you live as a high performer who doesn't have the appropriate coping strategies. Now, please listen carefully to this. This is curated for a very specific type of man. First of all, you are highly productive and you're action-oriented, but often you do so at the cost of being absolutely exhausted and burnt out. So you get a lot of things done, but sometimes you wake up the next day and you can literally feel it. You don't really get cranking till like 2-3 p.m. Often you've already relapsed at that point. You've viewed pornography. You find yourself looking for something sexual. Why? Because the day before, brother, you went all out. You don't even recognize your exhaustion and burnout because you wake up the next morning and you're still motivated to go get it. Your body and mind is just not supporting you. The second, I would call it a symptom of being a high achiever and a high performer who doesn't have the right coping strategies and ends up using pornography, is that you're driven by goals, you're driven by setting milestones, but you often feel empty even after you achieve them. Again, this is problematic because you're going to try and fill that emptiness with sex and orgasm. The third is that you don't know how to turn off your nervous system. This is very common among a lot of the men who end up in the intensive. Like you're always on, you're always pushing through, but you rarely slow down, and this often leads to chronic stress in your life. Your stress levels never drop. Fourth symptom is that you're great at overcoming obstacles, but you have a tendency to just ignore your emotional well-being in the process. So let's say something comes up that's getting in the way of your business or your job or you're completing a project. You don't give a damn. You're going to do whatever it takes to overcome that obstacle. But it doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter if you feel very angry. It doesn't matter if you feel betrayed as a result of that situation. It doesn't matter whether you feel sad or depressed. You're just going to overcome the obstacle no matter the cost. The fifth is that while you're very focused on your success, while you're very focused on winning, you still struggle with feelings of dissatisfaction. You struggle with feelings, with a lack of fulfillment in your life. Again, this is one of those things that is often medicated by pornography. You're dissatisfied. You cannot find it. Your goals are so big, but you're always looking around you and going like, damn, like what I have is not enough. 6 is that you're constantly moving on to the next thing. You cannot sit still. You do not reflect. It's all about the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Listen, I work with a lot of highly successful individuals, and I see them show up and I watch them jump from the next thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And then they wonder why they're engaging in all these out of control sexual behaviors. They wonder why they have the side pieces and the mistresses, or they're headed in that direction. They wonder why they have the pornography and visiting the strip clubs. They keep wondering why they have that. Brother, it's because you don't know how to slow down. You don't know how to stop and face your discomfort. You fix your discomfort by moving on to the next thing, or you feel that your discomfort is a natural part of the success process. The 7th is you definitely thrive under pressure. Like nobody can deny that. But you often find yourself neglecting all the warning signs of physical and emotional fatigue. And unfortunately, this leads back to what I talked about in the past, where you fall sick, something happens to you. And the worst part about it, let's talk about your health outside of your sexual health. If you continue this way, year in, year out, you eventually get to a point where all the stress you've been putting your body under eventually leads to some sort of physical or mental breakdown. Now, I know you think you're immune to that, but trust me, I have seen this happen again and again and again. And I've seen men lose everything because they just couldn't pull themselves up out of that. The 8th is that you're fantastic at being busy. Like you know how to stay busy, but many of you confuse your busyness with progress or being aligned with your goal, when in reality, you're not actually making that much progress. And then you get really mad at yourself. You're like, I've been cranking. I've been putting in the 60 hours, the 70 hours, the 80 hours. I've been busy. I've been working on a lot of things. But the truth is, you don't know how to slow down and delegate. You don't know how to let go of control. You don't know how to stop being a perfectionist. So you spend so much time being busy, being perfect, doing low-level shit that somebody else could be doing, trying to make sure that your clients are happy with you, or trying to make sure that your employees or the people who are in charge of your project are happy with you, that you never make any true progress. And the end of the year comes, you look at last year, you look at this year, and you're like, damn, I barely made a dent in my goals. Don't get me wrong. Like most high achievers, you probably move forward, but just a step forward. Your goal was not to move a step forward. Your goal was to move strides forward this year, and you haven't. The ninth is that I understand that you want success and recognition, but you become so focused on your achievements that it begins to strain your relationships, and it leads to a lot of emotional disconnection. This doesn't apply to everyone, but I know it applies to some of you. Some of you will take achievements over everything. You will give up relationships in order to be recognized. And this one is one of those that I have to emphasize because it's very easy for us to say like, nah, I'm not looking for recognition. But many high performers that I work with crave the achievement, crave the recognition, crave to be seen as successful. They cannot be quiet and successful. Again, this is problematic because a lot of times that is going to cause you to emotionally disconnect from the people who are most important to you. There's a richness in emotional connection that actually trumps the recognition of your success. Who cares if you've accomplished all these things? You've accomplished those things. You've done it. You've got the money. You're the person who built it. You're the person who made it possible. But why would you risk disconnecting yourself from emotions in order to get that achievement? I'll tell you what happens. At the end, you're right there at the top. You have the achievement, you have the success, and that's it. It is so fleeting to accomplish those things. I remember making my first million. Actually, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know how that came out of my mouth. That was such an impulsive thing I said right now. I actually don't remember making my first million. Let me rephrase that. I remember reflecting a few months later on making my first million. Yes, that's more accurate. I always thought that would be like a huge milestone in my life. But I'm pretty sure that the day came because it's very fuzzy to me, and I recognized it. I didn't celebrate it. I just kept on moving because I wanted to achieve something that was more important than that. I knew it was coming up and I wanted to crush it and do way better than that. And in retrospect, a few months later, I remember looking at it and going like, oh, it's pretty cool that I made that. However, it was no longer exciting. I couldn't even enjoy it or celebrate it. Why? I couldn't enjoy it or celebrate it because I had already moved on to the next thing. Wow, that's crazy. The next is you want to win at all costs, but this can lead to you neglecting your personal health, your relationships, and it can often lead to a lot of stress in your life, a lot of imbalance in your life. I know that you can relate to this. I know you can relate to doing whatever it takes, being on the phone all the time, giving up multiple weekends. I have to make those sacrifices too. We all do at some point. But when we don't have the emotional awareness of what is happening to us, we wake up, so to speak, years later, having given up so many things in our lives. We wake up years later and much older going like, damn, there were so many cool things I wanted to do, but I didn't do those cool things. I absolutely didn't do those cool things because I had more money to make or had another goal to accomplish. This is one reason, just a quick aside, that I developed, or rather I'm still developing, what we call the lifestyle reboots. Because a couple of years ago, I just realized that I was cranking 80, 90 hours and I had been going for years. I was not really taking any significant breaks except for my one free day a week. I wasn't seeing the world. I wasn't spending time with my friends. I wasn't doing any of those things. Finally, I set it up a few years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago, where 4 times a year, I make sure that I leave the country. I leave the United States and I go to a completely different place. I learn about the people. I enjoy the food. I explore the culture. I push my boundaries when it comes to what I'm comfortable or uncomfortable with. I invest in these countries financially. Like, I'm not just going there as a tourist. I'm going there as a citizen of the world. And that has been such a game changer. Like, we've done Japan, Spain, Barcelona, Madrid. We've done Greece, looked at real estate in some of the Greek islands. We went there to check it out, but we also ended up looking at real estate and investing there. We looked at a couple of places in Southeast Asia, which I've been going to. I mean, there's a lot I can share with you guys. This isn't the podcast for it. But if you're interested in these sort of things, being a part of our program is where I talk to a lot of high achievers about these things, and a lot of brothers who reboot. I wouldn't say we enter ventures together, but we have a lot of high-level conversations about lifestyle. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, then just remember that this isn't just about ending your out-of-control behavior. Rebooting is about hitting the reset button and rebuilding everything from the ground up. We are constantly stepping out of our comfort zone. The final two are, you think that being self-sufficient is power, but you avoid showing vulnerability. And this leads to you building up all these emotional walls, and then you get isolated. Oh my God, this one is so common. This one is very common, especially if you're a corporate guy who's in some sort of corporate commission sales. I see it a lot in bankers, mortgage loan officers. I mean, you guys can schmooze with the best of them, but you never get vulnerable. You have all these emotional walls up. Even a lot of salespeople, a lot of people who are in something where you make commission sales, really good at schmoozing, running your mouth, talking to people, seeming vulnerable, but you build up all these walls and you feel very lonely. Those of you who can only connect with escorts, those of you who can only connect with mistresses, with sugar babies, one of the reasons for that is not because, they're more convenient. It's just because that is the only place where you can be somewhat vulnerable. Because you sell so much and you work so much for money and you're so into transactional relationships that that's the closest thing to actually opening up and having a conversation with a woman in a genuine way that your porn-addicted brain, your high-achieving porn-addicted brain can actually understand. And then finally, you want to be seen as successful, but you end up prioritizing your external validation over genuine connection. And what happens is that a lot of your relationships end up lacking depth. This is one of the reasons why I left the sales training and the sales field, and I made the field of ending out-of-control sexual behaviors my vocation, because it is one of the places where when I'm talking to you as a client, when I say brother in this struggle, I do mean brother in the struggle. I understand that if you're a podcast listener and you've never become a part of our program, that's a heavy word and it's challenging for you to wrap your mind around. But I truly believe that once a person is on this journey, it's a human journey. It's a very human journey. I've been on the journey myself. I'm not a guy who just got training and a bunch of certifications, or some therapist who's just like, yeah, I'm specialized in it, but I never lived with it for over a decade. I'm one of the guys who was in the fucking trenches trying to make something of myself. It is also a field where I can generate actual connections with people, where when I see brothers that I've worked with from the past, we instantly have that connection of long years of accountability, of ups and downs. Like I know, like the guys who are in the program, everybody over the years comes to know everybody's weakness. We know the guys who are going to slip and relapse if there's a friend in town. We know the type of women that certain guys are into. They're into older women. They have mommy issues, like all these things. And these are not serious issues for us. These are things that we laugh about even as we go through the reboot process. But these are successful men. So you find yourself around successful men who they do prioritize external validation, but they can also get the connection that they actually need. So I'm already 20 minutes in, and I'm not a big fan of long podcast episodes. So if you can relate to all of those, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about how you can actually become a more balanced high achiever. So I compared the different personality types in the first episode of this series. And in this second episode in the series, I focused on you as a high achiever, a high performer, and how your traits end up leading you to slip and relapse and to depend on pornography. In the final episode of this series, I'm going to be talking about all the benefits of actually rebooting and having the appropriate coping strategies. I'll also be sharing some of these coping strategies with you. So I'll see you in the next episode.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.